We begin today with yet another escalation in the legal peril surrounding this White House. A president described as glued to cable news and increasingly furious, in this case with the FBI, after federal agents seized records from Michael Cohen, his personal lawyer, who has been at Donald Trump's side for more than a decade now. Arguably, nobody knows the ins and outs of Trump's relationships and business dealings better than his friend and fixer. Now, that information is in the hands of federal investigators. This morning, the president tweeting, "Attorney-client privilege is dead, a total witch hunt," among 4 inaccurate characterizations or flat-out misstatements in his comments about the FBI raid. I've got a great panel to break this all down, but first, a look at how these highly unusual events unfolded over the past 24 hours. On Monday morning, the FBI began raiding the New York City office and hotel room of Donald Trump's longtime attorney and confidant, Michael Cohen. Prosecutors from the Southern District of New York obtained the search warrant after getting a referral from Special Counsel Robert Mueller. Some of the material seized in the raid is related to the $130,000 payment to porn star Stormy Daniels just before the 2016 election. But both the New York Times and Washington Post report prosecutors also seized documents related to other topics, as well as communications between Cohen and his client, Donald Trump. According to the Post, Cohen's computer, his phone, personal financial records were all confiscated, and he's, quote, under federal investigation for possible bank fraud, wire fraud, and campaign finance violations. In a statement, Cohen's lawyer hit back. The decision by the U.S. Attorney's Office in New York to conduct their investigation using search warrants is completely inappropriate and unnecessary. It resulted in the unnecessary seizure of protected attorney-client communications between a lawyer and his clients. The president, of course, is not happy about any of this. Sources close to the White House tell NBC News he found out about the raid after it was underway, but before it broke on the news. Those sources saying he was furious and stewing over what is being perceived as Mueller forcing a provocative confrontation. That fury came through as he spoke to reporters before he met with his war cabinet to discuss America's response to the atrocities in Syria.
So I just heard that they broke into the office of one of my personal attorneys, good man, and it's a disgraceful situation. It's a total witch hunt. I've been saying it for a long time. It's a disgrace. It's frankly a real disgrace. It's an attack on our country in a true sense. It's an attack on what we all stand for. So when I saw this and when I heard it like you did. I said, that is really now in a whole new level of unfairness. They found no collusion whatsoever with Russia. The reason they found it is there was no collusion at all. No collusion.
All right, let's start with NBC's Jeff Bennett at the White House. So we've read those tweets that the president did one after another this morning. Yeah. What else are you hearing from inside the White House?
Good morning, Chris. Well, we're told the president is seething following these FBI raids on Michael Cohen's hotel suite and his law offices, and that's what really colored the president's tweets, the ones he sent out this morning, including the one where he referred to it as a total witch hunt in all caps. So here's the state of play that we're told is sort of coloring the president's reactions. First, you've got the raid on Michael Cohen. You've also got the fact that his former national security advisor has pleaded guilty. His former campaign manager, Paul Manafort, has been indicted. There's the scrutiny surrounding the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, all while former Trump campaign aides are said to be cooperating with the special counsel. And the president himself, we know, is the subject of an FBI investigation. So even as the president takes steps to delegitimize, to politicize the special counsel, remember the process for getting a search warrant on a lawyer requires many layers of approval at the Department of Justice, and then it has to go to a judge, and there has to be evidence of a fresh crime. Beyond that, the U.S. attorney who signed off on the search warrant for Michael Cohen is a Republican. He's a Donald Trump appointee. He's a former law partner of Rudy Giuliani. And add to that, Chris, he was also a top donor to President Trump's general election campaign. One other thing to note in terms of the White House response, you heard the president yesterday not rule out the fact that he might take steps against Robert Mueller. In the past, when he said that, the White House has taken steps to dismiss all of it. Now, the White House is saying nothing. They're saying comments stand on their own, which I think is certainly notable.
Jeff, thanks for that. Let me bring in my panel. Ned Price, former spokesperson for the National Security Council and an MSNBC national security analyst. Midwin Charles, an attorney from the law firm Midwin Charles Associates. A.B. Stoddard, associate editor and columnist for Real Clear Politics. Mike Pesca, the host of Slate's daily podcast, The Gist. Midwin, I want to start with the first line of an op-ed I read in the Washington Post this morning, which says, when your lawyers need lawyers, it's usually a bad sign. Richard Blumenthal called the raids a seismic event, probably one of the most significant moments in the Trump-Russia investigation. Big picture, how big is this potentially?
Well, it's extraordinary because Michael Cohen, as we all know, was Donald Trump's personal attorney and confidant. And we also know that Michael Cohen acted in many ways as more than an attorney for Donald Trump. He also acted as what many will call a fixer. He went around and became sort of a strong arm and spoke to people and told them, you know, don't write that article, don't do this on behalf of Donald Trump. So this is extraordinary because, as you know, an attorney and their client have privileged communications. Now,
so let's go to what the president said.
Sure.
Attorney-client privilege is dead. Under what circumstances could that not apply?
Well, this is the thing when it comes to privileges. Privileges are not absolute. An attorney-client privilege can be waived, and there are many instances when it does not apply. For example, if an attorney is not acting within the scope or purview as an attorney for a client at that time, then arguably documents or anything obtained with respect to that are not attorney-client privilege. For example, with the Stormy Daniels case, both Donald Trump and Michael Cohen have said that they didn't know about it. Donald Trump didn't know about it. Michael Cohen did this on his own accord. He paid $130,000 out of his own pocket. No one from the Trump organization authorized him or asked him to do this. So if he entered into that non-disclosure agreement without Donald Trump's knowledge, without telling Donald Trump, if he paid that money without telling Donald Trump, then arguably there was no attorney-client relationship with respect to that transaction, and the attorney-client privilege does not attach.
So, Ned, why wouldn't prosecutors just issue a subpoena first?
Well, Chris, in this case, it could well be that prosecutors didn't believe that Michael Cohen would adhere to a subpoena and that there was suspicion on their part that he could be engaged in destruction of evidence.
Is suspicion enough? Isn't the bar pretty high to do what they did yesterday?
The bar is extraordinarily high, but this is an extraordinary set of circumstances and set of events. This was, as we are led to believe, a referral by Bob Mueller's team and a referral that was acted upon by the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York. What is notable about that, Chris, is the fact that this U.S. Attorney was selected personally by Donald Trump. He was a former law partner of Rudy Giuliani. He was a maxed-out donor to Donald Trump. He contributed to Donald Trump's campaign. He's a registered Republican, and he was installed in this position only after Donald Trump personally interviewed him, which is, as far as I know, unprecedented for the selection of a U.S. attorney. And yet this U.S. attorney was still convinced by the referral by Bob Mueller and his team. But it's more than just this U.S. attorney. It's also presumably Rod Rosenstein. An action like this would have to be approved by the highest levels of the Justice Department. You're exactly right. This would take much more than mere suspicion. But given the fact that this transpired yesterday, we know there's a heck of a lot more than that.
Yeah, I want to re-emphasize that, A.B. The search would require the approval of senior members of Trump's own Justice Department. Here's what he had to say about Attorney General Jeff Sessions and Special Counsel Robert Mueller. Let's listen.
This is the most conflicted group of people I've ever seen. The Attorney General made a terrible mistake when he did this and when he recused himself, or he should have certainly let us know if he was going to recuse himself, and we would have put a different Attorney General in. So he made what I consider to be a very terrible mistake for the country. But you'll figure that out.
Fire Mueller.
Why don't I just fire Mueller? Well, I think it's a disgrace what's going on. We'll see what happens. But I think it's really a sad situation when you look at what happened. And many people have said you should fire him.
So, A.B., that's probably a step further than we've heard him say before, giving indications and making people like Senator Blumenthal nervous that he now really is seriously considering getting rid of Robert Mueller.
Well, the president can't get rid of Robert Mueller, but he can kneecap this investigation pretty powerfully by getting rid of Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, or Rod Rosenstein, who oversees the Bob Mueller probe. And that would be the fear, that you put in a lackey who's going to come in and cripple the probe, take away his power and his resources, give him a new order that's much more narrow than the broad one he's operating under, and make this go away. The president made clear in his remarks yesterday that he has always believed Jeff Sessions is just like Michael Cohen, a personal attorney, not someone who's the nation's top cop who took an oath to the Constitution and the rule of law to protect it for all of us. He believes that putting Jeff Sessions in was a mistake, and he actually articulated it in public because he's believed all along that his job was to protect him from the Russia investigation. So he's furious that Rosenstein and Sessions and his comments about them yesterday should make everyone alarmed.
So Mike, he's furious. He's spending his whole afternoon yesterday watching the cable news coverage of what has just happened. He only heard about it after it had already started, which I'm sure also made him, to your point, AB, unhappy. He probably thought maybe I should have been, given a heads up that this was even going to happen. And Axios is reporting Hope Hicks would have been the person to kind of go in with him, calm him down a little bit, give him a little bit of perspective. Talk about the president's state of mind and what this means, whether or not he's thinking about doing something that, in AB's words, would kneecap Robert Mueller or anything else, that he has some pretty big decisions to make on the foreign news front.
This might be too pop culture, but I have this picture of Black Widow calming down Hulk, Hope Hicks trying to be the Trump whisperer. Anyway, let's put that aside. State of mind. Here's why this is important. Most of what Trump was saying has nothing to do with the actual law. They've found no collusion, said in the present tense. I mean, that's why the investigation is going on. Michael Cohen might have information way beyond Stormy. We may be distracted by Stormy Daniels. I mean, that's her lawyer. That's to her lawyer's credit. Michael Cohen knows about potential deals that Trump was pursuing in Russia. And what Trump is trying to do, what he's trying to communicate, is not just trying to frame what the legal investigation is. He's also playing politics. And so far, his political ploy has been to frame this as, this is terrible, not just for me, this is terrible for America, this is overstepping the boundaries. And we just saw a report that Republicans might actually run on the idea of, well, if you elect Democrats, they're going to impeach Donald Trump. I just ask you, and I wonder about this because I don't really know. If you're a person in middle America who's weighing this and not as read in and not an expert like you are and you are, does that person say, the president's lawyer has just been investigated? Does that person say, well, that's really a bad thing for America? Or does that person say, that seems really bad for Donald Trump? I would think it's the latter, but maybe he's right.
What's so frightening about what he said yesterday is that his lawyer's office was broken into. And for people who are not following this as closely and know all the intricacies of the law, they are going to believe the tweet that attorney-client privilege is dead and that there's no crime fraud exemption. It's not been overridden. They're not going to pay attention to the fact that it was a high threshold. A judge actually believed that there would be probable cause and likelihood that once they did the raid, they would find evidence of a crime, and therefore there is no privilege. These are details that he is relying on people not to know, and that's what's so extremely reckless and dangerous.
And to use that language is flagrant and sort of flouts the fact that he says he's going to be a law and order president. But to say that they broke in when in fact this is a legally obtained search warrant is incredibly dangerous, because she's right. There are many Americans who don't know how this process works, who don't know that the FBI or these prosecutors had to go to a judge and articulate and make a showing. And let me tell you, I've had to do this before. It's very difficult to get a judge to agree with you. You have to set forth facts and tell them why this is. We understand, Your Honor, that there are less intrusive ways to get at this evidence, but we don't believe, we do not trust that this person will adhere to our request if we just send a regular subpoena. We think this is the best way to get this evidence. We must have the element of surprise.
We're out of time, Ned, but I want to give you the last word here. Where does this go next?
Well, Chris, if I might just follow up on Midwin's point there, yesterday was a very bad day for Donald Trump, but it was a very good day for the rule of law. It underscored the key point here that no man is above the law, not even Donald Trump. In terms of where this goes next, look, the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of New York now has a trove of information that they are sifting through. They will first sort out any privileged documents, but there is the very real possibility, I would suspect, that they have recovered and now in their possession further information that could feed back into Mueller's probe, and that will be further bad news for Donald Trump in the days ahead.
We want to thank you all really quickly and get some breaking news about President canceling a scheduled trip that was planned later this week.